Hello, I'm Luca De Giglio, and this is the Web3 in Travel podcast, where you can learn about crypto, blockchain, and how the new internet will change travel. Okay, so we start today's episode with some good news. Someone has made a donation in the Web3 in Travel podcast NFT. This is donation number 4, and it's been done by someone called the French Commander. I see this name on his or her OpenSea account, and he or she paid about $11 in ETH on their Arbitrum network. So thank you very much. The sponsorship is still open. We have no sponsors yet, and sponsors are more expensive, but they give you more visibility too. It's at podcast.web3intravel.com. I don't remember if I talked about what happened on the Arbitrum network. I remind you, Arbitrum is a layer 2 on the Ethereum network. They launched a token, ARB, and they did an airdrop. So anyone who had interacted, not anyone, but many people who interacted with the layer 2 blockchain in the past got some tokens. I got some tokens, and many other people I know got tokens. Pretty good one, this one. Pretty substantial airdrop. In the thousands of dollars for many people. Now, since we're talking about airdrops, one website you could use if you don't want to go around randomly and just trying to farm airdrops, which is a bad thing to do in general, you could decide to learn more about DeFi and Web3 by interacting with as many protocols as possible. And there's this website called Rabbit Hole at rabbithole.gg, where every day there's some quests, some little things where you swap $1 or lend $5, etc. And you get an NFT as a reward for doing that. You get a little bit of money for paying the gas, so you get $1 or 20 cents or whatever. Plus you are, using your address to interact with many protocols, which often leads in the long term to some kind of airdrops. So rabbithole.gg is an easy way to get started. Now, easy. No, you're interacting with real Web3 protocols, so you may find this hard, but you're not obliged to do that. If something is hard, you just skip it. And, there's actually when something is hard that you learn. So I would suggest to put some time into this. It's a very guided way to learn. It's more like a school, while the way I'm kind of trying to teach you here is like, go here, do random things, find yourself what to learn, more like a university, or even worse, more like after university, you just learn stuff. That's a big suggestion I give you. And that's hard for many people. They want to be guided. Rabbithole.gg is very good at that. Every day, tell you what to do, you do it, and you have learned. Today, for instance, the requirement is to do a swap on Uniswap on the Optimism network. So I suppose the Optimism L2 blockchain is paying Rabbit Hole to do that. And what you get is 0.1 OP, their token. So it's about 20 cents, plus the NFT from Rabbit Hole. Today, the quest was to do a swap on Uniswap. I don't need to learn that. I've done it a million times. But I did it anyway. I swapped, I bought one OP with ETH. It cost me about 50 cents of $1 for the Uniswap swap. And then I claimed the NFT, and it cost me again a little bit, 20 cents or something. And then I got OP, 0.12 OP as a reward. So I lost money on this. I lost maybe 50 cents, but that's okay. I personally do it because there's always things I don't know about. For instance, I learned how Perp protocol works. I used to play with it a long time ago. And so I learned a little bit more how long and shorts work. This is DeFi. It may be not interesting for you, but still, I like to learn. And so for me, this is a good exercise just to cover some gaps I have. Okay, last news. We are less than a month away from the Web3 in Travel conference in Barcelona. Things are starting to heat up. I'm starting to feel the excitement. In the next couple of days, I will kind of finish the program. So we have a final program. It's getting together pretty well. So check it out on web3intravel.com if you are in Barcelona, if you're in Spain or Europe. It's I think this is something you don't want to miss if you are in the Web3 in travel space. You will get to meet many interesting people. And so web3intravel.com. And let's start today with something new. I have never done something like that. I thought about it a lot, and I think this is the good way to do this. So what am I going to do? Well, let me tell you a story. So a few months ago, I decided that it was time for someone to build something useful in the travel industry based on Web3. And I think I have a good idea. I think I have a good synthesis of what we've been discussing and talking about here and out of this podcast with other people and in general in the industry. I think it's a good time to start building something which can affect the whole industry, no matter whether they are wallet ready or not wallet ready. As we discussed before, we can't wait for everybody to have a wallet. It's not going to happen in the short term. Plus, if it happens in the short term, wallets are not ready for mainstream. People will put valuables in there and basically lose them. So I started writing down a project, an idea for a startup, and this quickly became actually a whole specification for a startup. Basically, I wrote a document over 60 pages long, which describes a startup. With this document, I was going to go to investors and make a startup. And this is not a small idea to realize. It's not something you raise 100K with and start building. You need to raise a lot. I was thinking in the millions, right? And then I started sitting on this. I started thinking, before going into something that important, I started thinking about it. And I wondered, is this something I want to do? Do I want to launch a startup? There are so many opportunities in this space that launching a startup requires you to go 100%, 110%, 120% on this and kind of close your eyes to anything else happening. You won't have time if you have a startup to do anything else. And in the years, I learned about this thing about myself, that I want to be free to roam around wherever I find something interesting. I'm very, very good at having ideas. I'm good at writing down the idea and, conceive the idea. I've also proven to myself that I'm good at implementing the idea at small scale, just to prove that it works and start making some money. And then I realized many years ago that I'm not good at scaling. Scaling an idea is not something which excites me. It's like saying, okay, there was nothing. I had an idea. Now there is something. Let's make it big. Let's make it 100 times bigger, 1,000 times, whatever. That part, for some reason, does not excite me. I mean, it's already been proven. It already works. Yeah, you can scale it, but this is more like multiplying something which exists. And I'm probably on the creative side. I like to create stuff out of nothing. I don't like to make it bigger. Not only that, I'm probably very bad at this. And you can go back to my, Airbnb before Airbnb thing, where I had the idea very early. I made it real. It started making money for me. And when it reached enough money for me to basically travel full time, since that was my target, I was satisfied. It never crossed my mind to go to Silicon Valley and try to make a big startup out of this. Again, that's something which is not exciting for me, and probably I'm very bad at it too. Now, if you are a startup, founder, you need to hire, you need to fire. I can't fire people. Very bad about this too. It makes me feel very bad, even if I know that it does make sense. I'm not startup material. Okay, maybe I was long time ago. I'm not startup material right now. So I decided that taking this idea into my hand, going to investors and build it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Okay, so the idea sat there. I discussed it with other people in Trips community. They liked it. And then the next step will be like, okay, let's go to investors. But then one thing you learn about yourself is that when you're lying to yourself or when you're honest with yourself. And I was kind of lying to myself. I was saying, yeah, let's do the startup. Let's make this thing big, etc. There was no excitement behind that. I felt there was no excitement. And if there's no excitement in launching a startup, it won't last long. All right. On the other hand, there's also another fact. I think this is a good time for anybody in this space to build something small without investors. Some little protocol, try to see if there's market fit, and then maybe go to investors. And that's what I'm excited about right now. After the conference, I want to kind of start developing stuff myself. Not experiments as we did with the Trips community in the last couple of years, but actual protocols, actual apps people can use. But that comes a bit later. So what can I do with this idea? And I struggled with my ideas in the years many times because I had other ideas which later became big things and I never really captured any value out of this. All I'm left with is like, yeah, I had that idea before. How cool I am. Let me give you a few examples. In 1998, I started writing a travel blog. There was not even the word blog at the time. It was like travel, whatever. I called it travel report. Blogs came a few years later. In 2001, thanks to my Airbnb before Airbnb thing, I became a digital nomad. And I was traveling around Asia and South America mostly with a laptop. And I've never met anyone traveling with a laptop. I was not the first, I'm sure, but one of the first digital nomads in the world. And because I was in that mindset, I started seeing what digital nomads need. And in 2003, I started thinking about what today you would call a co-living. A house where digital nomads can meet when they come back from the travel, like a base, right? It never took off. We did many meetings with many people who were interested, but in those groups there was only another guy who was a digital nomad who was actually working remotely. So it was too early. There was no critical mass. And so again, I had this idea of co-livings much earlier, and if I had tried to implement it at the right time, probably I could have done something. But again, I get bored of those things and I go to the next thing, which is also an aspect of my personality, which is not good for startups. And it always stayed with me like this question, how can I monetize these ideas? Because I do have a vision on the future. I see things which later become big. I realize I see them too early to act on them, but I could at least kind of, when the time comes, somebody who is more concrete than me could actually build them. How can I monetize the idea and at the same time help those people who come with, a different perspective, maybe a very fresh one, but not enough experience, etc. And I never found an answer to this question. Well, there was not the technology to do that. Now, imagine you have an idea and you want to sell it. I'm sure there's websites and stuff, but I never had the way to do that. And now with the idea I have now, which is more than an idea, it's a whole specification. You could get it from me and build a startup based on that. I'm trying with a new experiment. I'm trying to monetize on this idea and at the same time give it out for free to people who want to develop on it. and at the same time also offer my help in a role which is more in line with what I want to be. So in this case, if you get my idea, get my specifications, and you build a startup on top of it or pivot your startup, I will be your advisor and I will get a little bit of equity or tokens. So what I'm going to do in this episode and maybe a few more is to tell you about this idea. And I keep calling it an idea, but let's call it a project about these specifications. And while I do that, it's going to be useful for many people listening. And those would be people looking for a startup idea in Web3 travel, people with a startup already in Web3 travel looking for a pivot or some changes, investors in this space who want to kind of have an idea to present to would-be startups, maybe startups that they've invested in and they want to pivot. So offer them a path, offer them something they can work on. It can be also useful in general for everybody because that's a concrete example. And we're going to go through every single aspect of these specifications. And while we do that, we can reason on many aspects of Web3 in travel. For instance, the way I develop this is not a startup and is not a DAO, it's both. And I've never seen this anywhere else, where the startup does the monetization and has to grow, gets the money from investors and does the exit. And the DAO actually creates the open protocol and takes care of it. And, open protocols should not be managed by companies, and startups fast growing things should not be managed probably by DAOs. So this idea, for instance, which is one of the original ideas out of this, could be used in future for any other vertical, not even in travel. So it could be in Web3, in travel ideas, or in any other industry. So let's get started. The working name, meaning that it's a name I just put out there, you can change it if you want, is NFT Factory. So it is in the NFT as bookings space, which is for me the most interesting trend right now in Web3 travel. And before I go into explaining what it is, the idea is to create an NFT which contains the specifications in written form, and you can buy it. So when you buy the NFT, you are signaling that you want to develop this idea. You are rewarding me for giving you the specifications. You acquire full ownership of the idea. So after that, I'm ready to sign a document certifying this. And I will never bother you saying you stole my idea, etc. I put it out there, you used it. You can use it even without buying the NFT. But if you buy the NFT, you're signaling, okay, Luca, thank you for the idea. We are building a startup out of this. Here's the minting of the NFT. You get some money for that. We shake our hands and we are fine. It's not legal. It's more like ethical, right? You want to say thank you for the idea and you mint the NFT. You could mint the NFT even later after you raise money. You can start working on it, trying to get some money. You get money from investors and then you say, okay, look, thanks to this idea, now we started. Let's mint the NFT from Luca and kind of say thank you for that. Also, it gives you kind of a priority because if somebody else gets these specifications and builds another startup, you can say we were the first, we actually acquired the NFT. Then, I don't know, whatever that means in terms of bragging rights or being first there. I don't know. But this kind of, the minting of the NFT certifies you saying we like it, we want it, we take it. I can't tell you what it means in legal terms. But again, I will sign a document saying I relinquish any rights on these specifications. So the NFT itself is not illegal, but it's like a shaking hands between me and you and saying, okay, I'm going to sign a contract. And on top of that, I will be your advisor if you want me. So I will be part of the startup as an external advisor in exchange for equity or tokens. So when you go to investors, you can say, we have the idea from Luca, which is a recognized player in the space. So the idea has some authority. It should make it easier for you raising money. And Luca will be our advisor. So I think this has some value for a startup trying to raise money. And that's why I put it down as an NFT. Now, the specific details of the NFT, I don't know them yet. I will do this later. I want to get some feedback from you listening to this, and then I will prepare an NFT with all the details. Now, so what we have here, we have a new way to monetize ideas and pass ideas to the market, and that's very, very experimental. And then we have the project itself, and so we're going to talk about this now. I see we're already 20 minutes in. I want to take it slow again because I see value into going into detail into this. So there's probably going to be more episodes about that. But let's start. I'm taking now the specifications and I'm going to read them to you. All right, title, NFT Factory. Subtitle, the easiest way to create NFT bookings or NFTs for bookings. Then there is an image, and this image is an SVG NFT, which is basically an NFT with an image, which is dynamic. And it says NFT voucher 10 to 20th of April 2023, and some other text on the NFT, which basically acts as a voucher. It's one of the possible designs of the NFT. Now, overview. A service for hotels to easily create NFTs representing nights. Okay, I'm gonna use the word hotels, but that means apartment, that means villas, whatever. The hotels is just easier to think about. So a service for hotels to easily create NFTs representing nights and guests to buy and trade them on NFT marketplaces. Hotels get access to the growing demographic of Web3 users and get direct bookings by leveraging the Web3 public infrastructure. Before we go ahead, the concept of nights represented as NFTs is not new, of course. We talked about this a long time ago in the podcast, and we've seen the rise of a few startups playing with this. But this specific project is different. It does the things differently. It doesn't mean it doesn't better, but it's another attempt to leverage this new concept of digital assets for hotel bookings. So let me go ahead now. A bit more in detail. Hotels create NFTs representing nights. Guests buy the nights as NFTs by minting them or buying them on our NFT marketplace or other ones such as OpenSea. As I read that, I remember, I'm sorry, I'm completely changing subject here. I remember when I had this idea and when I started writing this. I was in Thailand last year in April, so it's a year ago. And I was in a pool swimming, and I was kind of saying, okay, I could do that, I could do like this. And the first thing I did was writing a diagram. And the diagram is part of the specification. And since then, a lot of things have changed. It got much more precise. And it's been a year. So it's a good time to bring this out to the market. So let's go back to our specifications. So we said hotels can create NFTs and guests can buy them, either minting them or buy them on the secondary marketplace. Now, guests can use the NFT to stay at the hotel or resell them on the secondary markets when they want to cancel the booking or simply profit from the price difference. We've heard this concept before, right? The last point, hotels and guests can use a familiar Web2 interface, meaning wallet not needed, or a Web3 interface, meaning wallet needed, as they prefer. So that's one of the main cornerstones of the idea. Web3 wallets are optional. You can do everything described here with a normal login and password. Yes, it's renouncing decentralization in exchange for usability and mass adoption. It's something we are going to have to do for a few years. I said this before, it's not even people's fault. It's like, wallets are not ready. Let's stop pushing them too much on people. Let's make wallets better, and this is happening. In the meantime, we have to compromise. The flow. 1. The hotel creates an NFT representing nights. 2. The guest mint it and use it to stay at the hotel, or the guest resell it to cancel the booking or make a profit. So, again, nothing new here. The NFT is there, you buy it, and you either go to stay at the hotel or you resell it to cancel the booking or make a profit if you are a speculator. 3. The guest who actually stayed at the hotel keeps it as a proof of stay. When I say proof of stay, try to visualize your OpenSea page where you have your collection, and inside there's many NFTs for past bookings, and this is a lot of uses we discussed in the past that we will discuss more in this document. So that's the introduction of the whole thing. Let's go to the next page. It's advantages. I told you there's about 60 pages here, so it's going to be a long thing. Advantages. Today, bookings are contracts. You book a hotel and have a contract with the hotel which says you have the right to stay that night at the hotel. If you book through a third party such as an OTA, the contract is a bit more complicated and as it involves more people. That would say you have a contract with the hotel has a contract with Booking.com. In other cases, if you pay directly to Booking.com, it may be you have a contract with Booking.com, which has a contract with the hotel, and so on. The booking structure will be even more complicated when there are more parties involved, such as a travel agency, an airline, or other parties. If you want to cancel, the contract gets dissolved. If you want to book again, you create a new contract. The system is run on a myriad of legacy software and it's slow, expensive, and ineffective. We discussed this before. There's going to be many things which we discussed before. We're going to revisit them and think about them again. See it this way. Bookings today are not native on the internet. They've been digitized, but they are legacy systems based on contracts. NFT bookings are native of the internet. And this usually makes these things more powerful because the medium we are working on is the internet. Native things tend to be better. Next part, digital assets. NFTs tackle the problem from a different perspective, simplifying the transaction and unlocking new possibilities. And dangers, but we'll come to that. NFTs are native digital assets of the internet. So naturally, they simply work better than processes inherited from the pre-internet era. So I realize now that was written down. I didn't need to actually make the comment before. Anyway, the main breakthrough, NFT represent the booking as a digital asset, not a contract. If you book via an NFT, you purchase the right to stay at the hotel that night, and the NFT represents that right and that night. It's not very different from the contract, which also represents a right, but it has one important characteristic. The right is not tied to a specific person. The contract is like a rental agreement between two parties. The NFT is like cash. It's a bearer asset. You own it, you can stay. Let's go a bit further. Actually, it is not like cash. We use cash as an example to introduce the concept. It's more like a voucher. The voucher says, anyone who owns this voucher can stay the night of the 1st of August 2023 in a superior room with breakfast for 2 people. Or it can be more flexible and say, anyone who owns this voucher can stay a night between the 1st of August and the 30th of September 2023 in a superior room with breakfast for 2 people. Or even more flexible, anyone who owns this voucher can stay a night anytime in any room, if available, until the end of 2024 maybe. As you can see, NFTs have a certain degree of flexibility, but for simplicity's sake, let's refer to the most restricting one for now, which is anyone who owns this voucher can stay the night of the 1st of August 2023 in a superior room with breakfast for 2 people. This also introduces the concept of flexibility and programmability. We can now modify the right based on external constants and variables. For instance, listen to this one. Anyone who owns this voucher can stay any night in a superior room with breakfast for 2 people, but a specific night has to be defined before the 30th of June. If the night is not defined, the NFT is null. We will talk about it more in the programmability section. New section. Why now? Well, the booking now can be liberated from its contract legacy form and can become a fully digital asset. If it's really so much better, why has no one thought about it before? Because we needed NFTs and we did not have them. So you have the classic startup paradigm in which there's a new technology and you can do new things, and the startup comes and says, well, we can do those things now. Why couldn't you do this before? Well, there was no technology. So that's a very clean way to explain the advantages. Web2 has no ownership protocols. Thus, it is not able to manage digital assets. Web3 makes digital assets possible and tell us, now you can create and own stuff on the internet. Well, actually, we did this in Web2 also with domain names, for example. But the process to secure a domain name is too burdensome to even think about applying it for other use cases. Book a night going through the same hurdles of buying and transferring a domain name is simply not doable. Now, comment on the side. This is like having letters before, to send a letter, you had to, buy a stamp, write a letter, put it in an envelope, go into the post office and send it. That was great for sending letters. It wasn't too great for instant messaging. So we didn't use letters. We didn't invent instant messages with letters because, well, they were not instant and they were too burdensome. So when a new technology comes and says, well, now you can do the same thing, but much faster, easier, better, cheaper, it opens new use cases. So bookings could go through this kind of modification because we have now digital assets. I go on reading now. What else do we own on Web2? We don't certainly own our Gmail, Facebook, or Expedia accounts, nor the messages, likes, or reviews, or followers derived from them. We were able to set up a system of ownership for domain names because without them, the internet couldn't work. Imagine Facebook.com having to trust Google or another third party to be sure the domain will never be taken away from them. But for all the rest, we let companies take care of ownership of everything. This led to extremes like a private company, Twitter, shutting down the account of a president of the United States. You do not need to believe this was right or wrong to understand that this proved that we don't have full ownership of our digital lives. Why? Again, it's too hard to set up in a decentralized manner in Web2, while it's very easy in Web3. Again, digital assets are native to Web3. So let's use this new superpower of the internet, shall we? Next section, transferability. Here's another consequential property. The booking is a digital asset you own because you bought it. As an NFT, no one is in control of this ownership. They can't take it away from you. It's exactly like having a paper non-nominative voucher. If it's in your hands, it's yours, and you can use it to stay at the hotel. As a result, you can transfer it over the internet, which means you can give it to someone as a gift or sell it. This widens the possibilities and we argue the liquidity of bookings. If you can buy an NFT booking and give it to someone by simply transferring it, it becomes easier to book or make gifts. If there are secondary markets, the receiver is not forced to stay. They can sell it or swap it for something else. So I'm giving you a weekend in Paris and you can swap it for one in London, or if you can't really go, sell it. The booking is now liquid, transferable, and thus more valuable. But what is maybe the most exciting part is that you can book yourself a weekend in Paris and know that if you cannot go, you can sell it, giving you the flexibility you need. Today, the flexibility is in refundable rates, which entail a cost to the guest. Pays for them more than non-refundable rates, and or the hotel when the room stays empty. It's an inefficiency NFTs may help to solve. If you want to cancel, you sell it on the market. Maybe you get 50% of what you paid, maybe 100%, or maybe 150%, in case in the meantime demand has gone up. The hotel has got the 100% long before, having basically sold a non-refundable. Now, due to the extreme flexibility of the tool, we won't try to forecast all possible use cases, but simply point to the flexibility itself. If your reaction here was, wait, what? Why would I buy a non-refundable NFT? What if I can't sell it? The answer may be, well, buy a refundable one. Hotels can issue them too. At the end, it's all in the price. And as we will see, real price discovery happens only in open and liquid markets, which OTAs and direct bookings are not. More on that in the pricing section. It's important to remind also the following. A refundable rate with NFTs rate can be programmed. For instance, anyone who owns this voucher can stay the 1st of August 2023 in a superior room with breakfast for 2 people. If cancelled before the 1st of July, a full refund will be issued. This happens programmatically. The guest claims the refund to the smart contract, which checks if today is before the 1st of July, and sends the money back. Note how the refund will happen for sure, not only if the hotel agrees or a third-party OTA helps enforcing the contract. New section. Market created value. The booking for the hotel is effectively a non-refundable. For the guest, it's a non-refundable which can be sold, so it has a higher value. The extra value does not come out of thin air. It's effectively created by exposure to the market. It can be argued that this new technology allows to sell non-refundables at a higher price and or more of them. Conclusion. NFTs will transform bookings from cumbersome contracts to flexible, transferable, and programmable digital assets. Now, that's it for today. Let me comment on secondary markets, because in the meantime, we realized a few things. Now, any resellable NFT doesn't have value unless there's a secondary market. So if I buy an NFT from you and you tell me you can resell it, the value of it, it's in how easy it is to resell. So we've seen many projects, and we will see more in the future, selling resellable NFTs for flights and rooms, etc. If there's no secondary market, there's no really value. It's just a non-refundable, which is basically impossible to resell. So secondary markets here are very important. And any project, including this one, without a real secondary market is just selling you non-refundable NFTs. How do we solve that? Well, my hope is that because NFTs are digital assets and they are kind of out of control of the people emitting them, the secondary markets can actually come out of this. We will need critical mass. I think we will have critical mass because we have many projects on this. Who knows when? Maybe in this cycle, maybe next cycle, I don't know. But again, we need secondary markets to give value to this whole concept. So this was just the first chapter. I like doing that. I realize I like doing that. So probably the next episodes are going to be all about this. It allows me to revisit all these concepts. And also as I'm talking about this, I'm fixing the specifications. I make them better. So, well, give me some feedback if you find this interesting, and see you next time. And we're done. Thank you for listening to this episode. For more insights, follow me on Twitter at tripluca, TRIPLUCA. If you enjoy my podcast and want to support it, head on to podcast.web3intravel.com, 3 is a digit, and mint an NFT. If you want to sponsor it, you can do it at the same page. I will mention you in the podcast, and your name will appear on all donation NFTs for a while. Thank you, and ciao.